Hey, just showing you a quick little tip with the Nano VNA. When you have RG6, you can see that the SWR isn't flat. So what I want to do is I want to tune this cable. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this end off, and this little green thing on the Smith chart will eventually move around to the open circuit. So I'll just cut about 1 meter off or so, and you'll see that it'll move. So I'm going to cut it. See how it moved? What I want to do now is I'm actually going to go look at the around 28 megahertz, because around 28 megahertz, this distance will be multiplied by 4. So 7, 14, 21, 28. So we're going to see it somewhere down here. All right. So let's go look at 28 megahertz. So there's 28 megahertz exactly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut little bits of RG6 off, something like 10 centimeters. It's shot over to the other side because I quickly shorted it. Hang on, I need to cut off more than that. I'm going to cut off about 30 centimeters at a time. There we go. So it's probably more like maybe another meter. Getting closer. Getting closer. A little bit more. Almost. Now when I'm this close, it's kind of hard to see on the Smith chart because of the phase. So what I want to do now is turn on the phase trace. So let's go display, format, phase. There we are. So you can see, if it would focus, no, sorry, touch here to focus. I'm not sure if you can really see it. It's 14 degrees anyway. Hang on. Anyway, I'll just read out the numbers because it's probably really hard to read. It is 14 degrees anyway. I'll just cut off like tiny amounts. 10 degrees. 3 degrees. 1.25. I could probably stop here. There you go, half a degree. So we are perfectly. Oh, hang on! I just realised I bumped it up to 3 degrees. All right, we've bumped it a little bit higher into the band, which is fine. There you go, 28.16 is where it's around there. So we'll go back to 40 meters. If we back here, recall 0. Now if you look at it, 40 meters is over here. So an open circuit in this cable is now an open circuit on this. So it's an exact half-wave multiple of 40. We go down here to 3.5 megahertz, you'll see that an open circuit on this thing is a short circuit over this side on 80 meters. So we are quarter wavelength on 80. So what we'll do now is we'll not pause. Really need to get a pen or something here. Recall 1. We'll go up to 20 meters. And you can see that because 7 megahertz and 14 megahertz are an exact multiple, we're an open circuit still. Open circuit over here. We'll go up to 21 megahertz, and you'll see that again we're an open circuit. So, and obviously on 28 where we tuned it, we are an open circuit again. So this is how you tune RG6, so you can use it on the handbands without any issues. I'll put an end on this and then hook it up to a dummy load, and you'll see what happens, because something quite incredible does happen with RG6. Alright, 2 seconds. So now I've connected the dummy load to the RG6, and you can see something a little bit strange. So what's happening now is that because we've tuned the RG6 to a half wavelength on 40 meters, you can see that the lowest SWR is where we tune the cable, which is 7 megahertz, and also 14, and also where 15, 21 and 28 as well. So what it's doing now, this 50 ohm load is getting reflected around the 75 ohm point. Hang on, I'll point with the pen here. The 50 ohm load is getting reflected around the 75 ohm point to 100 ohms. So the best way to explain that is down at 80 meters. Because this is only a quarter wavelength on 80, we have, hang on, over here, if it decides to focus, there's our 100 ohm point there. So I think it's the geometric mean or something. Hang on. So yeah, so our 50 ohm point here got reflected around a 75 ohm point and turned into 100 ohms on 80 meters where it's a quarter wavelength long. Now on 40, it's a half wavelength long. You might ask, why did this only go around the Smith chart half time instead of a full circle? And that's because at half a wavelength, the signal travels all the way at the end of the cable and then reflects back, which means the actual wavelength that this thing sees is twice the cable length. So you're getting exactly a full wavelength back reflected. So a full 360 degrees, which means 50 ohm load. So that's how you can use some RG6 as your cable. I suppose I better show it also at the higher frequencies here. So SWR 1.1 to 1 on 14 megahertz. What have we got? 1.1, not too bad. Let's just change up. So at 21 megahertz, what have we got here? If I can focus the camera, come on. Yeah, it doesn't want to play the game, does it? Come on. There you go, 1.12. And 28 megahertz, also 1.12. So that's not anything I'm worried about. I suppose I better show you the S2 one as well. I do have the second cable here, so I can just hook the cable into itself, and we can actually measure it. Again, without a dummy load, we'll just measure it with the S21 port. So 2 seconds. Okay, it's probably worth showing you again. So when you use S21, this port over here, you're going to see something very, very similar, because this port here is a 50 ohm load. So yeah, we got the same type of thing happening, but now we can see the blue trace. Channel 1 log mag, so we've got negative 1.19 dB on 40 meters. Negative 1.2 dB on 20 meters. We'll just go back, recall 1, which is my second profile, and display trace 1 again. On 21 megahertz, we have 1.33 dB loss, and 28 megahertz, we have 1.35 dB loss. So that's not too bad. If you don't, actually I'll show you another thing as well. So yeah, 1.3 dB for, I don't know, I think what it'd be, 16 meters of RG6. I'm going to have to calculate it later. The velocity factor is somewhere around 83%, so 20 meters times 83%, that's the actual length of the cable. I can actually check it with the meter markings as well. I'll do that a little bit later. But another thing I can show you is if you don't have a way of doing S21 measurements, to get this loss number here, there's another approach you can use. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Now, this number here, in theory, because it's unterminated now, that number there, the loss should be half of this, because this is measured the cable, the signal going out the cable, reflecting off the end because it's not terminated, and then coming back. So that's 2 trips down the cable, and the loss we see for the 2 trips, negative 2 dB. So the cable's fairly decent. You can use RG6, it's fine. You don't have to worry about it. The only weird thing you do have to worry about is this nonsense here. So if you were to try and use it on the WARC bands, like 24, and what's the other one? 17 meters? Oh, not 17, yeah, 17, something like that. Somewhere around here, the RG6 is just going to mess with it. You're going to have a weird SWR. In the worst case scenario, you're going to have 2-to-1 SWR for a perfectly resonant antenna. But apart from that, yeah, RG6 on the, if you're a foundation license, just need, what, 7, 21, 28. The bit of this cable's just fine. And it's real cheap too. Radio, I'll leave it at that. VK4 Golf Delta Lima.